Imagine a universe where everything is perfect. There is no pain, no fear, no darkness, only light, harmony, and celestial beings praising the Creator. In this glorious scene, among myriads of angels, there existed a special, unique, and magnificent being. His name, Lucifer. His brilliance was incomparable. His song, like the sound of many waters. His position, elevated, honored, close to the throne of God. He was not just any angel. The Bible describes him as the anointed cherub who covers, a being of indescribable beauty, created to reflect divine glory. Imagine this, a being whose very existence radiated the majesty of the Creator. But then, an unsettling question arises. If Lucifer was created perfect, how could he have become Satan? If everything God does is good, where did evil come from? Did evil already exist and just wait for a moment to manifest? Or did it arise within him, silent and stealthy, like a seed no one sees germinate until it's too late? And more, if God knew this would happen, why didn't he prevent it? These questions are deep, challenging, and could completely change the way we view good and evil in the world. But to understand them, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to understand who Lucifer was before the fall and why he was created. So extraordinary. After all, who was this anointed cherub who had access to the very throne of God? And how did he become the greatest enemy of creation? Before being called Satan, he had another name, Lucifer. A name that carries an impressive meaning, bearer of light. And this was not just a metaphor. He literally shone with the glory of God. The Bible describes him as a being perfect in wisdom and beauty, created for a grand purpose. He was not an ordinary angel. He was an anointed cherub, one of the highest among celestial beings. His role, to protect, lead, and reflect divine glory. Imagine a radiant being with garments gleaming like precious stones, walking amidst the flames of God's presence, surrounded by a heavenly symphony of praise and worship. His gifts were unparalleled, his understanding profound, his appearance splendid. Every detail of his existence pointed to the perfection of the Creator, but something changed. What could cause such a sublime being to turn against the one who gave him everything? His lips, which once sang praises, began to whisper something different. At first, perhaps just a fleeting thought, an insignificant spark. But the thought did not die. It grew. After all, how could a perfect being desire anything beyond what he already possessed? This is the question that leads us to the critical point in the story, the rise of pride and rebellion. Evil didn't appear suddenly. It started as something subtle, a small shadow in a heart that was once pure. But what exactly triggered this change in Lucifer? It all began with a thought. Small, almost imperceptible, like a spark no one notices in the middle of a dense forest. But as we know, it only takes one spark for a devastating fire to spread. Lucifer looked at himself and saw something no other. Celestial being possessed, his beauty was incomparable, his wisdom immeasurable, his position privileged. He was so close to God's glory that at some point he began to desire that glory for himself. That's when the first distortion appeared. What if? What if I didn't need to be beneath the throne? What if I could reign? What if I were more than just a reflection of God's glory and could have my own glory? Lucifer didn't fall immediately. This thought was slowly nurtured, like a weed growing among flowers. The seed of pride was planted, and he allowed it to take root in his heart. The irony is that he didn't immediately realize he was drifting away from the truth. On the contrary, he believed he was right. Pride has this treacherous characteristic. It blinds, and then the thought turned into desire. Desire became ambition, and ambition, a decision. It was at this moment that something unprecedented happened in the universe. The first rebellion. Lucifer no longer wanted to serve. He wanted to be served. He no longer wanted to reflect God's light. He wanted to be the light itself. And that's when the phrase was uttered that would change eternity. I will ascend to heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. The creature wanted to become the creator. The reflection wanted to take the place of the source. But did God not see this happening? Couldn't he have stopped it? If God already knew what Lucifer was planning, why didn't he destroy him before evil could spread? This is the question that echoes in the hearts of many. If God is omniscient, he already knew that Lucifer would rebel. He knew that evil would arise. He knew the consequences. So, why didn't he simply stop it? The answer to this question takes us to the heart of something that defines not only the universe, but also our own lives: free will. Lucifer was not created as a robot programmed to obey. God gave him the freedom to choose. And here's a profound detail: without choice, there is no true love. Think of an artist sculpting a statue. He can shape it perfectly, give it a majestic appearance, place it on a pedestal. But in the end, it can never love him back. Because love cannot be imposed, it must be a choice. The same applies to angels and to us. If God had created beings who did not have the option to rebel, they could not truly love him. They would simply be puppets. But there's an even deeper detail in all of this. If God allowed Lucifer to fall, did he already have a plan? Was the existence of evil foreseen within a larger purpose? Because, you see, evil did not catch God by surprise. He was not defeated by the rebellion. On the contrary, what if I told you that, even before the foundation of the world, God already had a plan to deal with this? But before we talk about the fate of evil, we need to understand something crucial. How did this rebellion, which began in heaven, reach humanity? Lucifer's rebellion did not remain isolated in heaven. The same principle that led to his fall was repeated on earth. If we stop to think, the story of Adam and Eve is not just an isolated event. It is a reflection of what happened earlier in the heavenly realm. Lucifer was created perfect, placed in a glorious environment with free access to God's presence. But something within him desired more. Now look at Adam and Eve. They were in the Garden of Eden, a place without pain, suffering, or death. They had everything they needed. But then, someone whispers the same idea that first was born in Lucifer's heart. You can be like God. The same thought that destroyed Lucifer was whispered into the ears of humanity. And here's the irony. The enemy who fell because he wanted to be God convinced humans to fall for the same reason. Thus, the cycle repeated. The seed of pride planted in Lucifer's heart was now sown in the human heart. But the question is, why does this cycle continue to repeat itself today? Why, even knowing the consequences, do human beings continue to be drawn to the same mistake? Why does the temptation to want more, to seek power, to follow their own paths instead of God's, continue to destroy lives? And most importantly, is there any way out? Or are we trapped in this same spiral of fall and destruction? If pride was the root of the fall of both Lucifer and humanity, what is the antidote to this poison? Is there a way to win this battle? If pride was the beginning of everything, the cause of Lucifer's fall, the corruption of humanity, and the pain that afflicts the world, then what is the answer? Is there a way back? After all, if evil began as a choice, can it also be defeated? By a choice? This is where something surprising comes in. God not only foresaw Lucifer's rebellion and the fall of humanity, he already had a plan before the foundation of the world. A plan that would not only defeat evil, but use it for a greater purpose. And here's the greatest irony of all. What Satan thought was his greatest victory became his greatest defeat. Because you see, if pride was the reason for the fall, then what would be the only force powerful enough to overcome it? The answer lies in the very heart of the redemption story: humility. While Satan said, "I will ascend to heaven and place my throne above the stars of God," Jesus said, "I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but the will of the Father." While Satan exalted himself to be greater, Jesus humbled himself to serve. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. The evil that began in Lucifer's heart seemed to have won. It corrupted the angels, poisoned humanity, spread its darkness throughout the world. But then God did the unimaginable. He came to the world, but not as a glorious king full of majesty, not as a celestial warrior wielding flaming swords. He came as a baby. He came as a servant. He came to suffer and to die. And it was in that death that the fate of evil was sealed. But wait, is it really over? Because if God defeated Satan on the cross, why do we still see so much evil in the world? Why does it seem like the battle isn't finished yet? Is evil just waiting for its final moment? Or is there something else we still need to understand? What will really happen at the end of all things? What is the final fate of evil? And what does that mean for us? If Jesus has already defeated Satan on the cross, then why do we still see so much wickedness in the world? If the defeat of evil has already been decreed, why does it seem to continue to act? The answer lies in how God is carrying out his plan. The victory has already been guaranteed, but the battle is not over yet. Think of an army whose king has already been defeated, but which continues to resist, fight, and try to cause as much destruction as possible before the end. That is exactly what's happening now. Satan cannot change his final destiny, but he can try to take as many people with him as possible. And how does he do this? The same strategy he used in heaven and Eden: pride. He whispers into the human heart the same idea that destroyed him. You don't need God. You can decide what's best for you. Follow your heart. Does this sound familiar? It's exactly this mindset that dominates the world today. We live in an age where the self has become the center of everything, where seeking one's own will is seen as freedom, but in reality, it's a subtle trap that leads us away from God. And here's the scary part. We often don't even realize we're falling into this deception. How many times do we make decisions without consulting God, thinking we know what's best? How many times do we care more about building our own image than reflecting His? How many times do we feed pride without even realizing it? Evil no longer has the power to win, but it still has the power to deceive. And the question that remains is, how can we protect ourselves from this? How do we win this invisible battle that happens within us every day? The Bible gives us the answer, and it is directly tied to the final destiny of evil. If there's one thing Satan wants to hide, it's this: he's already lost. Even though there is still darkness in the world, even though the battle continues, the Bible has already declared what the end of evil will be, and he cannot escape that destiny. From the very beginning, God revealed what the end of Satan would be. In prophetic passages, there are descriptions of his final defeat, a day when he will be completely removed from history and will have no power over anything or anyone. The strongest image of this defeat appears in the book of Revelation, where Satan is cast into the lake of fire, a place of final judgment from which he will never again escape. But here's the great irony of this whole story. Lucifer wanted to be exalted above God. In the end, he will be humiliated. He wanted a throne higher than God's. In the end, he will be cast forever into the deepest fall. He tried to usurp divine glory. In the end, he will have nothing but eternal ruin. Evil will not win. It never would. From the beginning, God already had a plan, and that plan includes something even more glorious: a new heaven and a new earth, where evil will never again have a place. Now imagine this: a world where there is no more pain, a world where there are no more tears, a world where evil does not exist. This means that one day all pain, all injustice, all the struggles we face against sin will come to an end. But there is a question we cannot ignore. If evil will be destroyed, where will we be when that happens? Because the line between good and evil is not just an external battle. It runs through each and every one of us. And that is the most important question of all. What does all this mean for our life today? How does this story affect us now? Knowing that evil will be defeated in the future is incredible, but what does this change in our life now? Because while that day has not yet come, the battle still continues, not just in the world around us, but within each of us. If pride was what corrupted Lucifer and led humanity to fall, then the question is, are we really free from the same poison? How many times do we find ourselves living as if we were the masters of our own story? How many times do we resist God's will because we think we know what's best? How many times do we seek recognition, power, or glory for ourselves, not realizing that we are repeating Satan's same mistake? And the most serious question, are we, without realizing it, following the same path he followed? The truth is, every human being faces this struggle, but there is a way out. There is a different path. If pride was the root of Satan's fall, then humility is the key to escaping the same fate, and no one demonstrated this better than Jesus. While Satan wanted to be like God, Jesus, being God, chose to humble himself. While Satan wanted to exalt his own name, Jesus gave himself up for us, surrendering his glory. While Satan tried to take the throne, Jesus accepted the cross, and it was precisely this humility that destroyed the power of evil. The big question now is, which side of this story do we want to be on? Because in the end, there are only two paths. The path of pride, rebellion, and independence from God, the path that led to Satan's ruin. The path of humility, surrender, and total dependence on God, the path of Christ, which leads to life. What are we choosing every day? Because this story isn't just about the past or the future, it's about us, now, and the decision we make could change our destiny forever. Now that we understand the origin and destiny of evil, we need to make a decision. Which side of the story do we want to be on? This story is not just about the past, it's not just about an angel who fell or a future where evil will be destroyed. It's about us, about me, about you, because in the end, the great battle between good and evil doesn't just happen in the spiritual realm or the pages of the Bible. It happens within our own hearts. Every day, we make small decisions that either bring us closer to God or take us farther from Him. Every day, we choose between trusting in His will or following our own. Every day, we decide between the path of pride or the path of humility. And this choice defines which side of the story we want to be on. Because one thing is certain, evil has already been defeated, pride has already been sentenced, Satan's destiny has already been sealed. The only question that remains is, what will our destiny be? God has already offered a way back, a way that doesn't depend on our strength, our wisdom, or our righteousness, but on what Jesus has already done for us. But just as Lucifer had a choice, just as Adam and Eve had a choice, now the choice is ours. What will you do with this story? Will you ignore it as if it has nothing to do with you, or will you reflect and ask yourself, am I really living the way God desires? Leave your comment below. What part of this story impacted you the most? Had you ever thought about pride in this way before? If this video made sense to you, share it with someone. Maybe this message is exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We have many more videos like this to help you grow spiritually and understand more about the mysteries of the Bible. May God bless you, and see you in the next video.